So the topic of the month that I'll be sharing today will be on health. So as we all know, we actually have two amazing products. Reserve is our #1 seller in Jeunesse, and Revitablu that just got recently launched on the 28th of April. So very exciting products. But let me discuss about what health is all about. Health is actually being in a state of balance, right? It's called homeostasis. For those of you that have actually heard on Dr. Nathan Newman, he has actually talked a lot on this topic, and especially the term homeostasis. Essentially, why we age is that the cells in our body are aging. They are also dying. And in order to remain healthy, we want to actually balance the loss of cells. And why we lose cells is through oxidative stress, as you all know, chronic inflammation, as well as glycation. And you know which product actually does support all these three aspects of the attacks that undergo our cells in our body undergoes a few 100,000 times daily from all these three processes. And that is the product called Reserve. And essentially, how we are able to, there are two types of cells. Okay, I want to give you this explanation because I think it's not very clear in terms of the presentation given by the company, Jeunesse, but I want to give you this clarity so you are better able to share what Jeunesse has to offer and actually how well the products work towards countering the aging process in the human body. So, as I mentioned, there are essentially two types of cells. Stem cells that are actually the master cells in our body. They actually have no function, but they can actually go on to support the creation of specialized cells. So all these stem cells can differentiate itself to nerve cells, cardiac cells, muscle cells, and so forth, and so on. And they are known as specialized cells. And essentially, they are the building blocks, the tissues that makes up all our different organs. And there are over 200 specialized cells in our body. And in our body alone, we have about 40 trillion cells. But the thing is, we are losing 50 billion of these specialized cells, also known as somatic cells, every single day. So don't be overly alarmed because we actually have 40 trillion cells in our body, but we are losing 50 billion of them daily. And each of these organs will lose these cells at different rates. And the idea, in order to stay healthy, we want to balance the loss of the cells with the replenishment of these loss of 50 billion cells daily. And this is what we want to do. So if you look at how we replenish the loss of cells, there are actually two processes. The first is actually called mitosis. This is where our specialized cells, the somatic cells, there are over 200 of them in our body, can be our skin cells, heart cells, brain cells, retina cells, and so forth. These cells in themselves will actually divide as well, a process called mitosis. And this is actually how, this is one way in terms of how we replenish the loss of these specialized cells in our body itself. So the second way is what all of you have been introduced to recently. And by the way, when these cells divide, there is a limit in terms of how many times they can be divided, because that limit is known as the Hayflick's limit. It's anywhere from about 40 to 60 divisions. So if we are able to maintain healthy cellular cells, in this case, the somatic cells, the specialized cells, they would be able to hopefully differentiate themselves, or not so much differentiate, but multiply themselves by up to 60 times as opposed to 40 times. And that could make a huge difference. Every time cell division happens, the end caps of our human chromosomes, the telomeres, will actually start to shorten. And we know we actually have another product called Finity that actually has this enzyme called telomerase that supports the re-lengthening of our telomeres, in effect supporting the Hayflick's limit of perhaps instead of just 40 divisions, it would be able to go up all the way up to 60 divisions. So the second process of how we replace cells is that of the release of stem cells from our bone marrow itself. So as you've probably seen all this already through the explanation on what Revitablu does, and this is actually the natural renewal and repair system of the body. So all of these organs, they are aging. So whenever it needs that additional support, it's going to send out a signal, and this signal is then going to flow to our bone marrow, at which point it will actually start to release stem cells from our bone marrow, which will go into our blood circulation. And when it travels in our blood, another signal will be sent by the tissues, organs that requires the support. This is actually called the SDF1 signal. And it will actually start to attract all some of these stem cells that will cause them to migrate to the organs or tissues that requires the support. And once the migration happens, it will start to populate itself, it will start to multiply, and it will also start to differentiate itself once it comes into contact with any tissues or organs to become that cell, that specialized cells. So these are the two ways that how our body actually replenishes the loss of cells in our body. So if you know, in Jeunesse, we actually have two fantastic products. The first of which is reserve. The key word for reserve is that it actually helps us defend, and it actually helps support and keep our cells healthier. I will not go through the details because you've heard a lot about reserve. And tomorrow we actually have our anniversary event on the 9th. Do make sure you do turn out for that. Invite as many friends as well. Chris Cooper, our regional director, will actually be covering the topic on reserve and in depth as well. So let me just quickly skip this. One point of note, and it's not often mentioned, there are essentially two types of resveratrol. There is the cis resveratrol and the trans resveratrol. So if you look at this chart here, it actually indicates that in our reserve, we have 186 milligrams of resveratrol, and it's of the trans resveratrol, which is the good quality resveratrol, because the cis is actually not a good quality, and it's actually not very beneficial. So coming to the topic on RevitaBlū, well, as you all know, it just got recently launched here in Malaysia by Christian Drapo. He's the leading stem cell scientist and botanical researcher, originally from Canada, but based in America. So what he brings in this new formulation of RevitaBlū, which is in its 4th edition, in each iteration, there's always an improvement. Obviously, the legacy compound in whatever formulation is produced to date is Aphanizo'n Menon Floss Aqua, which is a blue-green algae, sea buckthorn, aloe, and beta-glucan. So the key word for RevitaBlū is actually to renew and to replenish the loss of cells through the release of adult stem cells into our blood circulation that goes on to support any organs and tissues that requires that support. So the release of the adult stem cells as a function of age starts to decline. Say at the age of 0, it's at 100%. Being a baby, we are growing tremendously, and how we grow is that our cells don't grow any bigger. It's through the multiplication of our cells. So obviously at this tender age, we need to be releasing a lot of adult stem cells from our bone marrow that will actually support the growth of our body. But by the age of 35, this has actually dropped down to about 55%. At the age of 50, it's about 50%. And at the age of 65, it's potentially down to 10%. So obviously, we want to have more adult stem cells in our body. It actually supports the natural renewal and repair system of our own body. So at this age in particular, a lot of us have age-related chronic illnesses. It's more important at this age to have more of the adult stem cells to support the renewal function. So as you can see with RevitaBlū, with AFA alone, it actually supports the increase of up to an additional 30% increase of adult stem cells within the first hour of consuming AFA alone. Aloe increases it by 30%, and it actually stays in our blood circulation for much longer as well. But the best news is that with the sea buckthorn, which is a new formulation, and it actually increases it by additional 40%. So we should see an additional total of about 10 million adult stem cells from taking RevitaBlū that goes on to support the healing of our own body. And with beta-glucan, it actually helps the migration of all these stem cells in circulation to any organs, any tissues that requires that support by an additional 2 to 3 million. As you can see, it actually decreases because it's actually being released from our blood circulation. So how do we share about RevitaBlū? You know, I had the opportunity to meet one of our diamond directors, Double Diamond, Yvonne Yen. So she asked me in the simplest form, what are, how do I share about Revitablu? And unfortunately, I failed miserably at that attempt because I was too technical, I was too detailed. So this is what I've come away with after experiencing that episode. This is the breakdown in terms of the simplest form, in terms of actually how we can share about Revitablu. So I've broken it down into 3 simple sentences. And then actually, if you look at it, it actually encompasses everything that Revitablu actually does, and whatever Christian Drapeau has actually shared as well. So it actually has the ability of the body to repair and maintain health. Whatever I'm highlighting in yellow are the keywords that you want to have, is directly linked to the number of stem cells in blood circulation to do tissue repair, renewal, and maintenance. So people that contract health problems, that have a lot of health issues, have an average of half the number of stem cells in circulation compared to healthier people. So if there's a means for you to increase the number of stem cells in circulation, you are bound to be healthier. And the best way to do so at the moment is by taking Revitablu, as it actually supports, the keyword here is supports, the natural repair and renewal system of your own body. So do take a snapshot of it. Try to put this into your memory, into your own words if you like, but just remember the keywords, because, and I hope that this will actually simplify the explanation in terms of how Revitablu supports health in general. So health is actually a state of balance. We want to balance the loss of these cells with the renewal of the cells. So as mentioned, Reserve actually supports the defense and keeps and maintains cellular health, both with regards to Specialize as well as our master cells. And Revitablu actually goes on to release of these new cells, the master cells, stem cells, that goes on to support all the specialized cells. So essentially, it's very simple. Christian Drapeau actually gives a very good analogy to our product in terms of how well it works together. Essentially, Reserve helps us maintain, and keep our cells healthy. They are like our frontline soldiers. So at any point in time when we can keep them healthy, they are going to be able to fight the battle better as well. And they are going to be able to last a lot longer in our body. So there's that less loss of cells in the process. So what Revitablu does is that it actually releases more soldiers, if you like, and it will go to any area that actually needs this additional support. Wherever it's lacking and wherever it's losing the battle, it's losing more cells, it needs that additional support. Revitablu is essentially releasing more of these soldiers to support the existing soldiers. So I hope this gives you a better appreciation in terms of what we have here in Jeunesse and how well it works